Hey, welcome everybody. You're here sessions with System and Soul with myself, Benj Miller, and my partner in crime, McKenzie Decker. And we're going to have some fun today, mainly because we're going to be talking about something that frustrates a lot of organizations. And a lot of organizations really, they get stuck, they get frustrated, they seem like they're dealing with the same thing over and over again. And so this is a free tool episode. And so today we're going to talk about one of the tools that we consistently use to mature the organization, get out of some of that frustration. And Mackenzie's going to lead the way. So you ready, Mackenzie?
I'm more than ready.
More than ready. Let's go.
In previous episodes, we've talked about having a weekly meeting. And some of those basic practices are the things that can be the most frustrating and I think the most impactful. I think any organization I've been a part of, and I know for all of our clients that we work with, there's just there's a constant need for priorities, right? Like every organization needs priorities, but that seems to be one of the hardest things to decide to stick to focus on for any team of any size that I've ever seen. So it's a super common problem. And I think what happens, and I'm sure that whoever is listening to this, if you're joining us today, you can relate where you've been in a season where there's 25 things you could do or that you're trying to do. And then you get to, the end of the year, you get to the end of the quarter, whatever timeline you measure progress on. And you're like, wait, what did we get done? Like, what were we just like, were we reacting to the things that fell in our lap? Or we made incremental progress in 25 categories. And at the end of all that, it can feel defeating when it comes to, did we work on the business? Did we progress as a business? Or did we just get a bunch of stuff done? So the tool we have for this is, again, we're gonna be able to talk about it in just a few minutes here, and it's gonna sound really, really simple, but I would say it is not easy. And we can talk more about that and why it's not easy and kind of how to navigate the roadblocks that come up as we go. But the tool is what we call objectives, more specifically quarterly objectives. So quarterly objectives are the 90-day goals we set as an organization to help us get the right things done and work on the business. I'm sure everybody here has heard that phrase before. The phrase on the business means that we're working on things that help us grow, scale, mature. It's kind of the things that you, as a leader, you have like in the back of your mind, like, man, we've really got to up level X, Y, and Z. But those things stay on some list somewhere and they never get done. And then we're just, again, we're reacting, we're dealing with the problems of today or the problems of the quarter, and we don't get those things done. So what we want to do is actively prioritize the working on the business stuff so that we make real progress year over year, quarter over quarter. So that's what an objective is. You see this play out all the time. One of the things our Benj and all of our coaches do is help teams set these every 90 days. So Benj shows up in the room and he's like, all right, how'd we do? And then what's coming? So can you kind of describe, just as you've been in the room, what does that conversation look like? And what do you see as people try to even land on the right things?
Yeah, we talk a lot about making bets because like you said, that stuff goes on a list and just never gets activated. The other thing that happens is you put everything on the list or you change the list so often that you're not making progress on the things that you said were on the list. And so when we sit down to do this, first thing we do is we really try and work on the business. So we've got to get everybody in the room out of the minds of I am in this function of the business and look holistically at the business, and then really try and get it down to as few objectives as we possibly can, the most important objectives. And so this is the thinking in bets. What is the thing, if we're going to take our resources, time, energy, money, focus, people, and we're going to put those chips on the table, then we need to put it in the most strategic place because there's an opportunity cost. If we put it on red, we can't put it on black, right? We're making that bet. And the reward better be worth the risk if this is going to be one of the most strategic bets we make. as an organization in the next 90 days. Or some of these objectives are actually eating away at our priorities for the year. So we've got these big priorities for the year. We've got 4 quarters to break those down and make progress toward them. So either way you're looking at it, we're really thinking about what is the most strategic bets that we can make. Herb Keller, who is the CEO of Southwest Airlines, is famous for saying, we have a strategic plan. It's called doing things, which is awesome. And I love it because it unmystifies strategy, but there's strategy in what are the things that we're choosing to do as a team. And then how are we going to actually get those done?
Yeah, totally. And it's, like I said, it's simply said, but it is a challenge to get to that level of clarity. When you're in that room, what do you see as the tension oftentimes in those teams as they're trying to decide what to work on?
One of the tensions is things that are in the business. So the CFO has an audit that they have to do, but they have to do it every year. The sales guy has a sales quota, but they've got that every quarter, right? So there's the tension of the working in the business, taking away from working on the business. There's the tension of too many priorities. There's the tension of anything that feels administrative is probably not a strategic bet. And some of that stuff has to get done. It's really funny to just ask the question sometimes, like, what if we didn't do this? You're like, but it's in that like should category. Like we should do this. Okay, but what if we don't? What if we just don't? What if we do it next quarter? What if we do it next year? What if we delegate it? What if we outsource it? What if we, how do we focus the energy in the room, the energy in the organization toward the most important thing?
Yeah, I mean, we've experienced that. I'd say the challenge that you're describing is it's my job and I've got to do it. And then there's also like, we've got to make time and create space for the things that are even outside of the to-do list. So there's this tension there that has to be managed, but
there's also a like, I'm the worst at this, attention toward like recency bias of like, last night on Instagram, I saw this new thing and it's now the most important thing that we should do in the organization. And right, I'm so guilty of that. And like the problem with that is it might be right, but next week there's going to be another one of those, right? So even having the list of potential things that could be objectives is super freeing for me because this idea, whether it's great or not, has a place to go and kind of simmer all the immediate excitement down. And then if it's there come quarterly time, great. Let's decide if it's one of the most important things. If, more than half the time you look at that list and go, what was I thinking? Like, why? No, we're not doing that.
Yeah. Let me break this down for them in case this is a new concept. But so the way that this works, so objectives are determined every 90 days. But what Benj is describing is over that 90 days, there's a growing list. We've got a parking lot for big ideas, for things, our big shoulds, the things that we know we want to do to help us move towards our 1 year or 3 year goals. So we're literally building, maybe even the list behind you is on your whiteboard is our opportunities list, our future objectives list. But we want to create over that 90 days, we create this parking lot list so we don't get distracted from the things that are already decided, that we're already working on. And I know that's extremely difficult for the visionary types. Just as for me, it's hard to, on the other side of that, move past some of the things that we just need to do to make progress in the day-to-day of the business. So we've kind of got I've generally got the 5,000, 10,000 foot view, and you're over here in the 30,000 foot view, and we're trying to find somewhere in the middle that our objectives can land. But we want to create that list over a 90-day period while we're working on our objectives. And then we get to this date on the calendar that we plan, and we put, I think right now we're putting 6 hours for this day where we come together as a leadership team. So anyone who is leading a department or that you would say they're like your generals or your executive team are going to come together for that 6 hours, and they're going to spend a portion of that time reviewing how did we do in the last 90 days. And then they're going to spend time taking that list out, looking at the parking lot, and then deciding these are the things that we need to examine for potential objectives in the next quarter.
Yeah.
So we've got this list, and then we do this thing called, usually there's 10 10 to 25 things on that list, and everybody has the ability to put something on there. So there's going to be things related to certain departments. There's going to be things related to certain functions of the business. And so we can't do 25. I mean, you could try, but we're not going to get very far. And so what we do, we have this little process we call keep, kill, combine. And so you basically just take that list and have a conversation around what are the most important things, what can wait, what should we not do? It's such a good question. And then we're going to get down to just a handful of things that we can actually do in the next 90 days. So it's got to be super realistic. Generally, we don't want more than, if you've got like a team of 5 people, you don't really need more than 5 objectives. We want to kind of keep it to like 1 per person, because otherwise we're going to overextend ourselves. We're going to lose that focus.
Yeah.
So and this may sound a little bit like, I don't know, intimidating in some ways, because if you got 25 and you only do 5, what happens to the other 20?
Right. And sometimes they turn into phantom, well, I've got to do that anyway. And it's like, okay, maybe, but the important thing is we're saying as a team, these other 3, 5, whatever are the most important. Another way that I've been doing it a lot, if you've got a lot on that list, to narrow it down, is just to give everybody in the room 3 little dots, sticky dots.
Yeah.
And so they're literally voting like, hey, if we only have 3 things, and if somebody really wants to put all 3 dots on the same thing, they can, right? But they're basically placing their bets on the bets, and then we use that to whittle it down. That's been really helpful. Yeah, I want to reiterate that like less is more. Absolutely no more than the number of people in the team. It doesn't mean everybody needs one. You know, some of the best quarters I've seen is when there's 6 people in the room and you have 3 and everybody's kind of pitching in and working together. It doesn't always work, but sometimes ask the question, is there a theme for this quarter? Like, yes, this quarter, we've got to like absolutely improve our internal operations. Okay. Yeah. Let's dial that in. Let's point everything toward that. So theming is another way that you get everybody cross-departmental aligned toward a common thing. And then they've all got their little aspect of how they're going to move the needle.
Yeah. I like that you said a lot, it aligns the team, because I think that's one of the most beneficial things about making these decisions in these quarterly objectives is it really helps us decide together what's important. Because like you said, the recency bias or the shiny object or the fire that happens, you know, in the business 3 months later, 2 months later can become a distraction. And it gives everybody the ability and the awareness to say, that's not what we decided that we were working on. This is what we already decided. So that can wait. So that alignment and that kind of clarity is a huge part of this. So we can't just, one thing I want to clarify, we can't just whittle it down, decide we're going to do X, Y, and Z. We've got a list of 3 to 5 things. That's part 1. The other thing that we want to do is get it really, really clear in defining what we are trying to do, what outcome we're looking for, and how we're going to know when we've done it. How do we know that we hit 100%? Because that's the other frustration I think that we all feel is like, we could say that we're going to do these 3 things, but what does that really mean? And we may all have a different idea of what done looks like. And so we can't commit this kind of time and energy to that unknown. And so we're going to get really, really clear on how we define these things as well. So I'm going to walk it through really quick. I
love that you're doing this because you're so good. You're so good at all of this, really dialing in the details and making sure everything's clear. One disclaimer, if we're really talking about stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 organizations, if you're a stage 1, like you consider yourself like in that startup mode, still trying to figure out your product market fit, your go-to-market strategy, sometimes 90 days is just too long.
Yeah.
And so I would recommend pulling that down and doing some 30-day or 45-day objectives. And obviously they're not as big, and they've got to have a smaller scope or part of a bigger scope. But what that allows you to do is go in faster cycles where you can reprioritize more often. Yeah,
that's a good point. We've even had, you have a period of time where you've got crisis seems like a big word, but if you've got if there's something kind of external that's happening in the business that's causing you to have to be a little bit more reactive. Like I know that as we went through the pandemic a few years ago, that all teams moved to 30-day objectives because there's a lot of unknown. And so that can still be true for any business, whether it's some kind of outside circumstance or it's just the stage that you're in.
Yeah.
The clarity of defining them, though, whether it's 30 days, 45 days, 90 days, whatever it is so important. And so there's a couple things that we want to lean into as we define objectives. First is we want to have a really clear mission for that objective, meaning like we want to have a clear, compelling statement that tells us what outcome we're looking for. And the reason we want to do that is because we can decide that there's something important that we need to work on. And over time, we could create the world's most perfect plan around it. But over time, we're going to learn more information. We're going to encounter roadblocks. We're going to things that we thought would happen are going to fall through. And so if we just define it by this perfect plan, we're going to get to a point where that objective is muddy. It doesn't make sense. We've totally lost the plot on it. And so we need to define the mission in such a way that we're able to say, that's the hill, that's the flag that we're headed towards. We're going to get there however we need to get there. Even if the route that we planned to begin with is not available to us 3 weeks in. So we want to be clear about the outcome and what we're looking for when it comes to defining an objective.
Yeah, this is so good because one of the things that we've experienced and I've seen my clients experience is when you do define it, having an outcome that you don't actually control. So this happens a lot when you're trying to do something with a strategic partner or a merger and acquisition or anything that there's even buying a property or something, a new office or a lease or something. There's so many variables outside of your control, and you get to the end and you're like frustrated, like I did everything I possibly could, but the other side of the transaction weren't ready to move as fast as we wanted to move, or ran into this, audit, whatever it is. Like you run into stuff, and that can be very demoralizing because you're doing all the effort, but you're not reaching the goal. So when you're sizing these up, trying and defining them, making sure that you define those ones, defining the contingencies that can mess it up, but also like what can we frame success based on what we put into it and see what the outcome is from there.
Yeah, it's such a good point to say, like it really should be thinking in terms of what you can control.
You already said it better than I did, so
it's really good what you're saying about having it be things that you can keep within your own control, because like you said, there's going to be all kinds of external circumstances that make it, could take it off course. So one additional thing, so we're going to start with a mission. We're going to state that really clearly, the outcome we're looking for, the outcome that we can control. And then we are also going to name what we call key results. Key results are essentially, it's like a high level project plan of like, if it's a checklist and we could day 1 start here and day 90 end here, what would that list be comprised of? And so for someone like me, this is my favorite thing ever because I'm like, okay, we're not just like, let me say this too before I need to back up. We're choosing things that take 90 days at least, or 30 days or 60 days. Like we're choosing something that's pretty hefty as far as like it's got multiple steps. It's going to involve multiple people. It's going to take resources, like we said. So we can't just say in a sentence, this is what we're going to do, and then hope that it happens in 90 days. So we want to plot out like over a timeline, what would be step 1, step 2, step 3, so that we really know we're headed in the right direction and we're able to say we're making progress towards it. Because I know we've all had an objective or a project that we've been a part of where it's like, yeah, we're going to go do that. And the meeting had all this energy and we felt really clear in the moment. And then we get like a week away and we had a long weekend or something. You come back on Monday, you're like, what in the world did we just decide? Like, yeah. I don't even know what that meant. So we want to
when am I going to do this? Like I signed up for all this and now I'm back at my desk and I have all these direct reports and all these emails and all these meetings and I have no idea how this is even possible.
Exactly. And so the key results are really going to help us decide like what are the key steps, the key outcomes, the things that we're going to do to get this done. One thing that I've noticed too is as I lead our team and we decide our objectives, and then a week later I go and kind of invite them into the conversation. So I'm explaining what we've decided, and the key results are a great place for me to show them where they're going to be playing a part in it. And I can say, you're going to be owning this step. When we get here, this is all you. Let's clarify what that means now before we get there. So key results are a good way to define what we're going to be accomplishing in the objective over time. And then we're also going to set milestones. And milestones are essentially, you can pull from your key results for this, but it needs to be something that we can look at in 30 days or 60 days and say, hey, is this done? Are we making progress? And again, this is like a benchmark so that we don't get 3 months down the road and we're like, what in the world did we just we didn't get anything done, or what did we decide? I can't remember what we were looking for. So we want to give that moment of what we call show and tell to really, it's like an accountability thing, but it's also another way to look at it is that show and tell gives the team the opportunity to speak into something before it's done to help you pivot or adjust or get feedback as you go. So we set those milestones at the 30-day mark, so a month in, and then 2 months in at 60 days, and literally do a show and tell for our objectives. The last thing we want to do is two things we want to do. We want to set a clear owner, and we want to set a due date. So you really want to lock in when are we going to say this is done, and then who's going to own it. And owning it means that person is really responsible for doing all that definition that we just talked about and carrying the ball. But they're really there to almost like project manage their objective, and they can invite in whoever they need to. They can ask for support. They can delegate pieces of that, but they're really the one at the end of the day who has to report on, is this done or not done? And what outcomes did we get to?
Yeah, you're avoiding the word, but they're accountable for it.
Well, and, I think I hesitate because it can be it has such a negative connotation in some ways. But
yeah,
accountability in the right way can be really powerful. This is also this clarity and this kind of focus. And I mean, you said it earlier, this kind of alignment of a team can be so dignifying. It feels amazing for a team when they have this kind of, they've got 3 things in 90 days that they're going to really drive towards on top of all their other work, but they're going to drive towards this together. They're going to do this work together, report on it, talk about it over that 90 days. And then we get to go, did we do it? Yes, we got 100% of it done. Like that's a huge win. And it's that kind of like rising tide lifts all ships momentum that happens when we're able to create this kind of progress over time rather than running at so many things at once.
Yeah, a couple of notes on that is that like winning creates momentum. And so if you've never done this, you have a huge backlog of potential objectives and you're going to want to go like hardcore. But really getting a rhythm of winning with these quarterly objectives over time you'll be able to increase maybe the quantity, but also the scope of them because you're better equipped to get lots of people in the organization involved. And so I'm just recommending that you start small and then feeling that momentum. That's why we check in on these in the weekly sync every week, is because we want, if we set it and don't come back 90 days from now, even if we did get them all done, which would be a moment to celebrate, we miss the opportunity to celebrate along the way. Hey, we're crushing this. We're doing this. Hey, we're probably like 2 weeks behind on this. We're going to need some help. I'm stuck on this. I need your help. It's more of a team sport when we do it together like that. And winning's always more fun when you're playing as a team and really operating at that level. There's one other question I love to ask in the session room as people finish defining their objectives. And a lot of times the answer to this question is just like, no, there's nothing. But sometimes it unlocks magic in the room. And the question is this: is there anything that we could do or decide today that would greatly accelerate the success of this objective? So I'll give you an example of what that is. Is there anything we could decide today that would greatly accelerate the success of this objective? We were in a conversation. We'd already defined this whole objective. It was around implementing a CRM. There's always some CRM, blah, blah, blah in companies. But it was a big switch to a new CRM. So by the end of the quarter, I forget how far they wanted to get on this thing. But the first 30-day milestone was making a decision on which one they were going to go with. They had already done some preliminary work and they just needed to make a decision. And somebody in the room kind of, meekishly raises their hand and say, can we just go with blah, 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 whichever one that was kind of their front leader. And everybody around the table was like, yeah, just do it. Boom. We had magically done 30 days of work with one quick conversation. The other thing it can do is surface any underlying concerns or ideas that people have regarding that objective, and again, accelerate the potential success of it. So that's a great question as you're wrapping up this exercise.
Yeah, that's strong. So just to recap, and then we got a resource for you that's going to help you do this. When we set objectives are going to be 90-day goals generally, but if you've got, a smaller business or you're just trying this out for the first time, try it for 30 days, try it for 60 days. So we want to set a mission, a clear statement of what outcome we're looking for. We want to define key results, the project plan, the checklist of what's going to get done as we go along. We're going to set milestones so that we're actually showing and telling the work as we go. Set a clear owner, a clear due date. We're going to ask at the end of that, are there any decisions we can make that would accelerate this? And again, we want to make sure that these are things that help us work on the business and not in it. So if the CRM needs to be on the list, great. But if the CRM is just somebody's job, it's somebody's job. So that's the recap of objectives, quarterly objectives. I hope you give it a try. You can do this at a senior leadership team level. You can also do it at a departmental level if you're not leading an organization, you're leading a team. So give it a try. We have a tool for you to try out here. We've got a downloadable guide that's 5 conversations that leadership teams should be having, but oftentimes aren't. And this is one of them. We call it the focus conversation. In that guide, there's all kinds of questions for self-reflection, to discuss this with your team and kind of build your list together and get that initial list going. And then some questions to kind of jog your thinking and maybe look at the business in some new ways. So this entire step-by-step plan is in that guide, as well as these kind of thought-provoking questions on how you can do this for yourself. So that link will be in the show notes. You can download that for free and give it a try.
Sweet. I'm remembering how much work I have to do on my quarterly objectives. So I'm going to get out of here. Hey, if you are enjoying the show, then share it with somebody else. Share it with somebody on your team. Maybe you can rally a meeting to get some quarterly objectives and make the next 90 days the best 90 days you've had in your organization. Special shout out to Fist Bumps, who helps produce this show. Great partner of ours. Really appreciate all of their support and guidance. And we will see you next week for your next session.